this meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. I want to, first of all, before we get started, apologize to our listening audience. Our study session went a little long, approximately 25 minutes, 20 minutes longer. When that happens, understand the screen on channel 15, cable 15 is dark or blank. It's not intentional. Sometimes our sessions go on. We have issues that we discuss, and obviously the council study session is pretty much for flushing out and talking about and vetting everything that is before us at that particular hour. So I do apologize to our audience here, and also for our audience that is listening in over our cable station. So the next item on the agenda would be a presentation. You want me to come in?
We're going to do a short PowerPoint presentation, and then if you wouldn't mind, we would love for you to present the trophy to Veoneer.
Yes? Okay.
The City of Southfield and Parks and Recreation were proud to host our second annual Southfield Community Cup Challenge. A couple of our board members that have been participating and actively planning the event were unable to join us at the council meeting this evening, but Mars Agency, Robert Half, and members from HAP and Denso were very active and Moncor were very active in the planning of this event. So we truly appreciate all of their support. And I definitely would like to say thank you to Parks and Recreation under the leadership of Terry Fields and Chris, and my two Chris's here who are phenomenal. They did a wonderful job and we appreciate them. And I know that this is a priority for Parks and Recreation as well as business development, so we're really pleased to be part of this project. So I do have a short overview, just so that everyone can be familiar with the Community Cup Challenge. This was a series of events that took place over a 6-week time frame. We had kickball, trivia, volleyball, an amazing race, and a school drive. And we had participants from different companies within our city that helped build team spirit and support a worthwhile community focus, which this year was the Southfield Public Schools. Again, this event started on July 12th and went through August 9th. We had 5 team events and 19 companies. We had over 500 participants and volunteers from all the different companies to support the Southfield Public Schools. And at the end, the schools received over $20,000 in school supplies. The companies that participated this year, and here's a list of all of them, there were 19, Adian, Aria, the City of Southfield, Kamau, Credit Acceptance Corporation, Denso, Donor, HAP, IHS Market, Lawrence Tech, Moncor, MSX International, Nexus, P3, Redico, Robert Half, STTAS, which is the UPS company, Mars, and last but not least, our winners, Veoneer. The first event was the kickball tournament, and that was a ton of fun. And again, we were able to show all the participants our beautiful parks, and this one was at Inglenook Park. The second event was a trivia contest, and we had a strong team from the City of Southfield, but I don't think we won that. The volleyball tournament, again, was here at our complex, and that was a ton of fun, and I know that Parks and Rec worked hard to get the field set up, and brand new sand was in place for that event. We had an amazing race around Southfield, and we had companies running around the entire community, going to all of our parks and looking at our art and getting pictures, selfies with the mayor. It was a lot of fun. And then the last event was, it was a poster contest, but really it was companies coming together and making donations to the schools and making welcome back posters for the students. And we just saw a tremendous outpour of support for the schools. Many companies had furniture that they were willing to donate, technology, school supplies. It was really a beautiful event. It was held here on our campus. And here's a list, and you could see the winner there with 20 points was Veoneer. So that was great. And the city of Southfield, did fairly well. So we did do a survey of all the participants, and we just have some quick statistics, so I just wanted to run through them really fast, if you don't mind. Let's see here. So from a scale to 1 to 10, we got really strong support from the participants that they, really enjoyed the event. It was a very positive experience. That the time frame was good for them, the 6 weeks or 5 weeks. Everyone really enjoyed the competitive sport events, and then as well as the volunteer component at the end. Like I said, the kickball and the volleyball were real fan favorites. And we have some suggestions for next year. So during the winter months, we're going to start planning the next event, and we're going to make some modifications just based on the feedback that we received and the availability and based on the time of the year. And a lot of people really enjoyed making the donations to the schools. Last year we did Gleaners, and we donated a significant amount of food. So we're going to see what we can do this year to maybe merge the two or do something to support both activities. And we do have a little bit of improvement to do, and so we're going to work on our issues. And it's been a challenge getting people out of work and trying to manage all the activities so that people could compete. So we have to try and figure that out as well. And we really had one company that was unlikely to participate, but all 18 companies, we had a lot of support for doing this again next year. And so the final feedback, that everyone really enjoyed it. So are there any questions? Or does anyone have anything to add? So at this time, I would love for the representatives from Veoneer to come up, and Councilman Brightwell. Michael wanted to get a picture.
All right, are we making the presentation now?
Yeah.
Congratulations.
All right, on 3. 1, 2, 3. Thank you all.
Congratulations, guys.
Very well, very well.
Excellent job.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Do you want to say anything, or? I just want the trophy. So they're moving forward with their new building, and so I know it's going to be prominently displayed right in the front when you walk in, so it's going to be a great activity. So, thank you.
Okay, council, we have no appointments. We will now move into the minutes.
Mr. President,
Mr.
I'd
Cruz.
like to move approval of the regular meeting minutes of September 17th and September 24th.
Support.
It's been moved by Mr. Cruz, supported by Ms. Taylor, that we approve the regular minutes of September 17th and September 24th of 2018. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Minutes are approved as presented. I would like to announce to our listening audience that on the consent agenda, there's a lot of information here, so my job right now is just to give you a summary and a capsule of what we are approving and also the fiscal impact. Our city clerk website, on the City of Southfield website, lists the regular meetings and the agenda, and if you can go there and then you can see all the detail and all the backup that is associated with this consent agenda items. The first consent agenda item would be the AT&T Complete Link 2.0 contract. As part of the continuing review of the telephone and other utility costs, administration is recommending the approval of a Complete Link 2.0 contract with AT&T to cover outgoing dispatch phone lines. The fiscal impact of this particular item is the proposed Complete Link 2.0 contract will result in a $43,000 savings in per line and per call on these 5 lines. Funds were budgeted for these expenditures at the higher rate. Consent agenda item B, the Southfield Police Department Traffic Improvement Association grant. A little background. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, NHTSA, provides states with grant funding for drunk driving and seatbelt enforcement. The money is given to the Michigan State Police Office of Safety Planning by NHTSA, and the OHSP, which is the Office of Safety Planning from the Michigan State Police, then employs the Traffic Improvement Association, a nonprofit, as the lead agency in Oakland County to manage the grant and administer funds to sub-recipients such as the city of Southfield. The amount of funding received by each jurisdiction is based on traffic crash data for the past 5 years for that particular jurisdiction. This year, the city of Southfield is eligible to receive $21,113 of funding for traffic enforcement. They will also receive $17,400 for drunk driving enforcement and $3,713 for seatbelt enforcement. The fiscal impact of this, the fiscal impact in total is $21,113, which will be paid for by the reimbursement from the TIA grant, TIA being Traffic Enforcement Association grant for police overtime for traffic enforcement periods. The next item is the approval of the investment agreement, management agreement for the Southfield Employee Retirement System. Background. In November of 2014, this council approved an investment for the Southfield Employee Retirement System, which is called SERS, with Bloomfield Capital of Birmingham, Michigan. The approved investment of 2% of SERS, of the SERS fund at the time, approximately $2 million, was for the Bloomfield Capital Improvement Fund 2. That's a numeral 2, which is an alternative fixed income fund providing mezzanine and bridge loans to fill commercial needs. We are now winding down the period for Fund 2. As the Fund 2 is in its wind down period, Searles Investment Consultant, Ad Company Consulting, has reviewed the Bloomfield Capital Investment Fund 5 as a successor investment. ANCOR Investment Committee has thoroughly examined this investment, including the firm's structure, investment professional, investment strategy, historical performance, and terms of current offering, and have approved this investment for their client. It is recommended that we invest $2 million into this particular fund. As this investment will be structured as a rollover of the BCFI 2 Fund Number 2 principal, Bloomfield Capital is offering a higher percentage return, 8.5%, than the Fund General Preferred Fund of 7.5%. The fiscal impact of this particular item, the objective of a more diversified investment portfolio is to improve the risk-adjusted investment return. Therefore, the intended result of this effort is the stabilization of the city pension cost. I will now move on to consent agenda item D. Approval of the corrective action plan in compliance with PA 202 of 2017. In December of 2017, the Michigan legislature passed Public Act 202 of 2017, which implemented certain posting requirements, reviews, and minimum target funding levels for the public pensions and retiree health care plan. Further, the act established a municipal stability board to set parameters for those plans which are currently under minimum target funding levels parenthesis is 60% funding for pension plan and 40% funding for retiree health care. To submit a corrective action plan to outline how the underfunded plans or system will achieve the minimum target funding level. In order for the CAP, the corrective action plan, to be approved, it must be first approved by the city legislator, that is your city council. The city of Southfield, 2 pension plans, Southfield Employee Retirement System, SERS, and the Fire and Police Retirement System, both exceed the minimum target funding levels. However, retiree health care benefit plans and trust, 2 sections, one for the SERS retiree and one for the fire and police retirees, are both under minimum target for retiree health care plans and are considered underfunded by the Municipal Stability Board. In conjunction with our benefit consultant, Cornerstone Municipal, the City of Southfield has worked to develop a corrective action plan to address this underfunding designation. The foundation of the plan is the transition to an alternative insurance platform that takes advantage of increased federal subsidies. Once implemented, the actuaries project that the liability of both plans will diminish substantially, and will put both RHC plans in compliance with this PA Act, PA 202. The liability calculations anticipated that the transition will occur in the second quarter of 2019. The fiscal impact of this particular project is the projected reduction in the liability in the retiree health liability is expected to have a positive impact on the city's total financial health, as seen by both bond rating agencies. That would be Moody's and Standard & Poor's. The projected future cost of retiree medical premium would be better managed, resulting in an improved cash flow for the city.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Fakasi.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move for the consent agenda approval.
Support.
Moved by Mr. Fakasi, supported by Mr. Cruz. They will approve consent agenda items A through D. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The consent agenda items are approved. We are now into public hearing. The first item will be item letter A, Brownfield Redevelopment Plan.
Good evening. The city staff received a request from the Southfield Neighborhood Revitalization Initiative, LLC, for the approval of their Brownfield redevelopment plan for the redevelopment of 35 single-family homes. This plan was reviewed by the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority and recommended to the City Council for approval on September 18th. This plan will enable us to rehabilitate these homes and create more investment and enhance the city's tax base, as well as establish more funds for our revolving account. I would like to ask Ms. Hardy from AKT Peerless to come forward, and we have a short presentation, after which we would like to have a public hearing to discuss this item.
Good evening, Council President, Council members. My name is Kirsty Hardy, and I'm from AKT Peerless. I'm here today to help present about this Brownfield Plan number 3 from Southfield NRI. I know you've seen this presentation twice before. This is a very successful program, so Southfield NRI is here again for a third time with a new round of tax foreclosed properties to rehabilitate and bring back into the community at market rate. Southfield NRI is a member of the Southfield Nonprofit Housing Corporation, which was formed to provide housing facilities and other recreational and commercial facilities to help low-income housing and seniors in the community of Southfield. Their goals are to reduce and contain the number of rental properties throughout the community, promote home ownership, renew Southfield housing stock, maintain attractive neighborhoods and eliminate blighted properties, and raise residential property values throughout the city. They have been working hand in hand with Habitat for Humanity of Oakland County. That is true for the last 2 portfolios, and it's true for this third one. Habitat for Humanity is acting as the construction manager and also assists with the marketing of these homes when they are ready. This round, Southfield NRI is also working with local real estate brokers to rehabilitate these homes and put them on the market. So a little bit about the success that we've already seen from the first 2 programs. The first time Southfield NRI came before you was in 2016. That time there were 45 tax foreclosed properties. As of the 1st of this month, 28 of them have been fully rehabilitated and sold at market rate, which is really exciting. There's 5 currently under construction, and the rest should follow in the next year or so. And then last year, Southfield NRI came before you again with Brownfield Plan Number 2. There were 56 residential tax foreclosed properties in that portfolio. Again, as of the 1st of this year, 13 of those have been demolished, and 6 of those have been rehabilitated and sold at market rate. To date, over $5.5 million have been invested in tax foreclosed properties in the city of Southfield. That includes bringing these properties up to date on past due bills, fees, building permits, and reinvesting and rehabilitating these properties, which has included things like asbestos and mold abatement, demolition, and then new construction activities as well. So this third portfolio, this third brownfield plan that is before you today includes 35 properties that were tax foreclosed. These are qualifying for brownfield TIF because of their tax foreclosed status. And they are located throughout the city. They're seen on this map here. So the activities that we have identified that need to take place and which are eligible for reimbursement through Brownfield TIF include BEA activities, due care activities, lead and asbestos abatement and surveys of the properties, site preparation activities, demolition, infrastructure improvements, which includes things like sidewalks in front of the home, and also the preparation of a brownfield plan and administering that brownfield plan. We estimate that total eligible activity costs are going to be in the ballpark of $879,000. As in all brownfield plans, Southfield NRI has to keep meticulous records, copies of all their bills for the eligible work that they then submit to the Southfield Brownfield Authority, and only their actual incurred eligible expenses are what reimbursed through the increase in taxes that are paid by the new owners of these homes. We estimate reimbursement to take place over a period of 13 years for this portfolio. And then at the end of the reimbursement, again, just like the last 2 plans, there'll be 5 years of capture into the Brownfield Authority's local Brownfield revolving fund. And that money can be used for Brownfield-related activities on properties throughout the city at the Brownfield Authority's discretion. And I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Council?
Will you open the public hearing first?
Oh. We'll open the public hearing is now open.
Explain what the public hearing is, if anybody wants to talk.
The public hearing is limited to 3 minutes. This is your opportunity to ask questions and make statements with respect to this particular issue that is before us. Go ahead, Ms. Hubble.
My name is Sarah Habbo, and my question is, I know that we got the statistics on how many were sold at market rate. My understanding of the program is that some of these houses are supposed to be available to the community to purchase. Is there any way to get numbers on how many were actually available for purchase by residents that were sold at rates like through Habitat for Humanity, and how many were actually just sold, I guess, through the nonprofit? And also, is there a reason why the Southfield nonprofit meetings are not accessible to the community, since it appears that the majority of the members of the Southfield Nonprofit Housing Corporation are members of basically the city of Southfield. Thank you.
Public hearing is still open.
Is this hers?
Fred Bunker, 24201 Garner. We've seen the deterioration in the property values based on vacant homes and/or one that sat for years. And I noticed that the money would be available for the asbestos and lead issues, as well as an environmental cleanup. Am I correct, Mr. Crowe, that the house next door to me didn't receive those specifications? They tore the asbestos off with crowbars. They didn't use any federal funding. Took place at 4 a.m. The house I've had to get aggressively verbal with you about, it sat vacant for 10 years next door to me. And now the property was left with the asbestos that when you pry it off with a crowbar, it goes everywhere. They didn't put tarps down. The lead, there was no permit approved for the demolition of this house, if I'm not mistaken. Did it sit after the asbestos was removed for weeks until the house was demolished? We can't print one thing on the screen about asbestos and lead abatement and keep the code house. We spent $250,000, Mr. Fracassi, on the code house to turn it into what it is today, Mr. Frazier, an abandoned vacant building,
You're not
consuming utilities.
Since you addressed me, you're not supposed to be talking directly. You're supposed to
Oh,
talk to
pardon me.
the president.
I was present when this code house had $250,000 approved to do what was done to it without removing the asbestos. Thousands of people live around the code house. Nobody lives around Hudson's. Why did we spend federal money to remove asbestos from Hudson's, but we let the code house, what is Dale Hyman coming back? The mayor at the time claimed that was his city administrator as an explanation for why this city spent $250,000. The guy never paid rent. The utilities were in the city of Southfield name on this vacant abandoned building since 1974. We've been paying the utilities. It's an abandoned vacant building. I didn't see it on the list of demolition. Why do we let it sit while the population grows? We added a bus stop and a bench to sit as close as anybody would dare to a house covered in asbestos. It's 100 years older than Hudson's. Let's use some common sense and get rid of the poisonous houses before the vacant or the abandoned, as listed by your promoter. Let's take care of the abandoned vacant buildings we're aware of, that we created the situation that allows them to deteriorate today. And by we, I mean elected people who said, we're going to turn the code house into a bed and a breakfast for a white non-resident.
The public hearing is still open. And just a point of clarification, please address all comments and questions through me, not through other individuals seated up here.
Mr. President, as I have seen some of the homes that have been repaired, I've seen the kitchen walls removed, which means the lead has been removed. But I have seen water lines that come into the house, which are lead pipes. Those have not been replaced. So as you're removing the walls and you're still leaving the lead water pipes coming into the house, which is going to be stopped in 23 or 22, because the governor has signed the law, why aren't these houses being done at the same time they are being updated? Why isn't the lead from that part being also removed? That's my only question. Thank you.
Okay, yes, sir. Public hearing is still open. Seeing no one else, the public hearing is closed. Are the council, you have any comments or questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Fracassi?
how many houses were being removed? I can't remember what it said.
Demolished?
Yeah,
I believe it's 6 in this group.
how many?
6.
6 of them? Now, are they in residential neighborhoods?
I
who's maintaining the integrity of keeping them clean and making sure nobody dumps on them? In other words, how are they being policed, those that we have tore down?
The
Are they-
revitalization, the Southfield nonprofit is maintaining the properties and working with Habitat for Humanity of Oakland County to ensure that the environment is kept in a proper condition.
I'm talking about being left in a neighborhood without being taken care of, not being mowed, not being taken care of the trash that may be thrown on it. Who monitors those? Do we have a person in City Hall that does that?
These properties are all part of the nonprofit. When the city purchased them, they were all sold to the Southfield nonprofit. So the city's not involved in this any longer. It goes over to the nonprofit.
Yeah, in all due respect, Shelley, they do belong to the city of South because they're in our community.
The nonprofit
And-
monitors the properties.
But we monitor, no matter who owns them, we monitor the property.
Then
I mean, if it's in the city
I
of
guess the code
Southfield,
enforcement department
well,
would then be ultimately responsible.
Yeah, I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but I just don't want to see these places tore down and then become vacant and people then throw things on them. And, you know, we have someone through code enforcement that goes through and cuts grass and puts it on their tax roll. And I just want to make sure that those lots that are taken down in single-family neighborhoods
Certainly.
are monitored and maintained.
I will make a note of that, and it is my understanding that these properties are going to be through the nonprofit. They will be sold or will be working with developers to build new single-family homes on those properties.
Yeah, I hear all that. I
yes.
know the process, I know what's supposed to be done. I just want to make sure that those are not
convey that.
something negative to the neighbors.
Absolutely.
Mr.
Okay.
Perkowski?
Yes.
I think Mr. Mandelbaum and Mr. Zorn perhaps way to answer to one of your questions.
If I may, through the chair, to your question, once the homes are demolished, the Southfield Nonprofit Housing, or the NRI, does contract with landscapers. They mow the grass, they shovel the snow in front of it. They always make sure that it is clean, safe environment. It does not disturb the residential neighbors. And at the same time, if for whatever reason the snow is not shoveled or the grass does not get cut on its regular schedule, which it should, I can assure you that the city's code enforcement is right on top of the Southfield nonprofit, making sure that it does get done,
Yeah.
just like they would with any other resident.
I know what the policy is, I'm just wanting to make sure that it's done,
It absolutely is.
because we don't take care of, excuse me, some of the residential that are being owned by individuals today. You drive by them, just like I had one in my neighborhood. Thursday, they dropped almost a truckload of junk out in the road, and it stayed there until Friday night, Saturday morning. And I'm just making sure that all these places, when they're taken down, are monitored closely and no trash is left on these empty lots.
Yes.
Counsel?
Did you say Mr. Zorn?
Yeah, comment.
I just also want to indicate, as soon as the homes have, the nonprofit has possession, they alarm the homes, the grass is cut, the snow is plowed. If they're dead trees, those trees are removed immediately. Regarding the number of properties to be demolished, right now the estimated number is 6. That is an economic consideration when they get in the homes. There have been, unfortunately, a number of homes that are so beyond repair and where the environmental conditions are so great, particularly the mode, that the homes have had to been tore down. But there's a question of market obsolescence and value still being placed. I'll indicate to council that when NRI asked council to exercise its right of first refusal, we have by section number of the city, when we started this program in section 34 and 35, you did not have homes selling for more than $42 a square foot. You just had a sale for $125 a square foot in Section 34. You have pushed everyone's property values up. Regarding the, throughout the city, the per square foot values, when people are looking for comps, their properties are worth more now today than they were 3 years ago. Regarding the environmental issues, I'll remind you, all demolitions have to go through and pull a permit through the building department. Prior to pulling that permit from the building department, you have to have a 10-day clearance from the Michigan Department of Environmental Quality regarding that you've done the appropriate testing, lead and asbestos. So I think when you look on average, the number being spent on per home between environmental costs, it's a little over $20,000 per home. It's real similar to what we had with our NSP experience. I will tell you, again, what our objective here was to push the values up so that these homes don't fall into the hands of speculative market players who weren't making any investments. When all these homes are sold, they have a certificate of occupancy or compliance that they're up to code. Egress windows are put in, homes are hardwired for smoke detectors. We work to exceed the code. I do want to comment, the Southfield nonprofit is not made up of entirely council people. There is one council member on that board, and that council member is appointed by council president as part of the annual process of appointing committees, chairs. As city administrator, I sit on that board. That is built into the board, and a current position is filled by the mayor, not in his capacity as mayor, but at the time he was appointed, he was not an elected official, and there are no restrictions that multiple elected officials cannot be on there. We are very conscious of the Open Meetings Act, and at no time have I had more than one council member in any of those meetings, and we're not conducting city business, we're conducting business of the Southfield nonprofit.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Fakasi?
Yeah, Mr. Administrator, I hear you, and I'm well aware of the things you stated. I'm just saying is that I'm through the city each and every day, in all parts of the city, and I could take you to two that have sitting there. Some guy bought them at auction for $85,000. Now he wants $100,000. It's got a swimming pool that's got water in it. You got a crack base under it. It's got a roof coming off of it, and it's sitting, and I don't see anything happening to it. All right? I wait for code enforcement to do something. It would come before us or before you, become before building department, but it still sits there. And that's right off of Bell Road in a nice neighborhood. As a matter of fact, it's a horseshoe drive. It sits right at the point of the turn. And it keeps sitting there, a white brick home, ranch. And I'm just saying, I go through these neighborhoods all the time to make sure that things are solid. I'm very concerned about the community. I've lived here a long time.
Seeing no other, Mr. Frazier.
To the city administrator, a comment was made that houses were being refurbished, but the lead water pipes were not removed, replaced. Can you address that?
It is my understanding if we find a lead service line, we are replacing it. But according to our Public Works Department, lead service lines, we have been replacing them up to the entry point of the house for years in Southfield. So Public Works has been doing that. But if we find a lead service line, we have been replacing it. And I could go back to Habitat and ask them how many we have actually done. I think for council, a lot of us are scratching our heads trying to make sense of the new legislation that the state legislature passed. For years, we were all rushing to put copper plumbing into our home. And I want to remind you, when we start speaking about lead and copper, we treat our water with the phosphate, the very phosphate that the city of Flint was not putting into their system, which allowed all of these pipes and that to erode and let the lead solder leach. So regarding NRI, if we have a home that we discover has a lead service line, we are replacing it. I will also tell you that we did have one home where we found the counts of lead on the exterior perimeter of the home were too high, and we had soil remediation done there, and we re-engineered that site so that those levels were safe. And that's simply years of old lead paint, water coming down and leaching into the soil. For the record, we had a couple of NSP homes that had the same issue. I will assure you that there are very few private homeowners doing this level, a private homeowner doing this level of environmental testing when their homes are being sold, where the amount of lead sampling you're doing for the walls, the asbestos, your soil perimeter, this is above and beyond what's required by state law. So, I think that's where this is a good thing, because you're now repositioning these homes to have another life, 50, 60 years. And hopefully we catch all the environmental protections. I know, every wall surface is tested for lead. And when the renovation work is done, all of that work has to be done in compliance with the current federal laws as well as state laws, and our building department could come and speak to how extensive that is now.
Okay. One other point that was made was that when Mr. Iman was here as the city administrator, he lived in the code house and he didn't pay any rent. That's semi-true, but it's not true. What happened was that he negotiated refurbishing the code house in lieu of paying rent. And each month, he had to turn in bills that he had paid that equaled the amount of rent that he would have paid. And don't shake your head no, because it's true, I was here. But he did pay, and when he was all done, the state of Michigan gave the code house an award for the refurbishing. So I just wanted that to go on record that that's what happened.
Ms. Taylor?
Yes. I missed it at the beginning. Could you tell me what AKT Peerless, what kind of company is it? Is it environmental or?
AKT Peerless is an environmental consulting company and incentives. We're the city's consultant.
You're the city's or NRI?
I'm sorry, it's the NRI is the consultant.
You're the NRI consultant. Okay. And then there was one question that was also asked about how many homes went to Habitat for Humanities. Are we selling any of these homes to Habitat?
No, I'm sorry, nothing is being sold to Habitat. Habitat is working as the construction manager on each home.
Only?
Yes.
Okay, so they don't recommend families, we don't give any of those homes to
No.
Habitat to give away? None of that?
No.
Well, wait. I don't know about this current batch, but just for the record, some homes have been sold, more modest homes in a price point that work, have been sold to Habitat for their clients at market rates. So whatever the market is per square foot, an appraisal is done by independent appraisals, not by Habitat's appraisals. All of the sales are now being handled by Southfield-based realtors. And I don't think we've gotten to, there might be some homes in this current portfolio that might go in that scenario. But I don't think that those final determinations have been made yet.
Wait a minute, so you're saying there are some homes that has been sold to Habitat?
Of the homes that we have sold, some have gone to Habitat clients. So they were sold to Habitat, and then their clients placed in them. All of those homes were sold at market rate, where the market was at that point in time, fully renovated like all the other homes. And they tend to be very modest homes because the Habitat clientele, they're 1,300 square foot, 1,400 square foot homes that work. They also have all of the support of Habitat, and we know that their tenants, for the most part, are they're home buyers. I'm sorry, wrong word. They're home buyers go through a lot of support and training, and enjoy the support of Habitat throughout the program, as long as they're in the home. And very few people in the Habitat program, as they're buying their homes, lose their homes. But they make mortgage payments just like everyone else, and they pay a market rate on the home.
Oh, no, I think that's good, except that the question was asked, is there a listing? Is there a way for us to know? Because I didn't know that. That's why I was asking the question. Is there a way for us to find that information out?
I will get you the exact, we'll start breaking that down in that, in the report you got last month. We'll show which ones, the number that went to Habitat.
Okay.
I think it's 6 or 7 to date.
I think that's very good, and that's something we should share that information.
Mr. Chairman, just one more.
Go ahead.
comment.
Mr. Picasso, hold one.
On the slide, you showed the 46 homes, where they presently are, whether they're in court, or they're
This
tore down, whatever.
2016.
Yeah, but I get a copy, I didn't see a copy of that in here, in my document.
It's not in the document, it's just in the presentation.
No, but I would like to have it.
Certainly.
Okay.
Why don't you just give us a copy of the presentation?
Sure, absolutely.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Mandelbaum.
assuming there's no other questions, I'd like to move the approval of the Brownfield redevelopment tax plan for Southfield Neighborhood Revitalization Project 2018.
Support.
Moved by Mr. Mandelbaum, supported by Mr. Frazier, that we approve the revitalization program project for 2018. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you.
All righty, we will move on to rezoning request.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Our public hearing number B is PZR 18-0004, a rezoning request of Sam Dorchin of Dorchin Martin Associates on behalf of the owner, Eagle Landscaping, to rezone 5.205 acres of property from B3, General Business, OS, Office Service, IL, Light Industrial, P, Vehicular Parking, to I-1, Industrial. The property is located on the northwest corner of Losser and West 8 Mile. The proprietor's address is 20779 and has frontage on both Losser and 8 Mile. This is the dimensions of the properties here, existing conditions. These are the current, if you see there's an amalgamation of different zoning districts on the property, which they've been conducting their landscape supply business there for before the city was even incorporated. And the proposed zoning is to clean up the site into I-1 industrial district to make it conforming. I'm also going to present the second part at this time, and we'll have to have two separate hearings. Should the rezoning be approved, the applicant, again, as under the petitioner Dorchin Martin Associates, would like to establish a landscaping contractor's office and yard. Again, this is a legal non-conforming use. This would make it conforming. The properties, again, on Losser and West 8 Mile. And then I'm asking Mr. Dorchin to come up to talk about the specifics of the site and how specifically they are cleaning up the frontages along Losser and 8 Mile. And then after each public hearing, we'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have. Mr. Dorchin? So you got this, and then you got the two. Okay, I can
You'll do
if
it?
you want to talk.
Good. Good evening. My name is Sam Dorchin, Dorchin Martin Associates, 29895 Greenfield, Southfield, Michigan. This site has been a landscape supply for the entire area for more than 50 years, and it goes back to the 1970s and even earlier. The rezoning is to organize the entire site that has, as Mr. Kroll has said, it organizes the entire site into one zoning classification, and obviously the use is one type as well. They supply landscape materials to the entire area. Other landscapers buy from them, as do individuals, and their direction at this time is to make it a much more pleasant-looking area so far as the frontage goes, as you can see from the landscape plans on 8 Mile Road as well as Lazar. The addition of some sculpture on 8 Mile Road, that's an antique road grader that was put in on their own, which is quite an attractive thing to see, and that the Lazar site is that area also cleans up and makes that a much more attractive area. If you have any questions, the owner is here tonight, and I will be able to answer them as well.
Okay, well, we will open up the public hearing first. Is that it, Mr. Crowe?
Yeah, I just, again, the first public hearing is on the proposed rezoning.
Okay. All right, public hearing is now open.
Fred Bunker, 24201 Garner. Is this, where is that, is it Covissant? It's located in that strip there? Commercial Enterprise Lumigen, I think was the name. Nothing on 8 Mile there.
I think that was further
I'm not sure where
down.
it's located, far enough toward Berg. Berg Road. I was trying to
I
picture
think that
in
was
my head.
further down by Berg.
No, this is at 8 Mile and Lasser.
Okay. I'm mistaken, sorry.
Okay. All right. Public hearing is still open. Public hearing is now closed. Council, you have any questions or concerns? Okay.
I would just say that the plans really clean up that corner, even though they've been very neat all along. But the plans right now make it a conforming use. So I think the owners have, as far as I'm concerned, the owners have done a good job of running a top-notch place there on the corner. And I'm not saying that because they're my favorite friends or anything else, but it's just a place that, coming into Southfield, it's a nice location, nice clean location, and I expect that to continue.
So again, you'd be taking action on the proposed rezoning at this time, and then we have to open the public hearing on special use.
Okay. All right,
Mr. Chair,
Mr.
I'd like to
Mandelbaum.
move the approval of PZR 18-0004.
Support.
Moved by Mr. Mandelbaum, supported by Mr. Frazier, that we approve PZR 180004, rezoning request. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr.
I
Fakasi?
abstain. These are personal friends of mine.
Mr. Fakasi abstained. So it was 6-1? I mean,
Be 5.
5-1. 5-1.
Well, 5-0 with one abstention.
Okay.
And through the
5-0
clerk,
and one extension.
through the chair to the clerk,
Yeah.
we have to introduce an ordinance number for the rezoning, or we just enact it at next month's meeting?
It will be enacted
Okay, I
next
just
month.
wanted to clarify.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All righty. 501. We will now move on to item C in the public hearing.
Yeah, and again, I'll just restate it. This is PSLU 18-0006, a special use request of Sam Dorchin of Dorchin Martin Associates on behalf of the owner, Eagle Landscaping, to establish a landscape contractor's office and yard, property located at 20779 Lasser Road.
Public hearing, is that it? Okay, the public hearing is now open. Seeing no one, the public hearing is now closed. Comments by council?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Mandelbaum.
I'd like to move the approval of PSLU 18-0006.
Support.
Moved by Mr. Mandelbaum, supported by Ms. Taylor, that we approve PSLU 18-006 special use request. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Mr. Chairman, let it be said that I abstain because of personal friends.
Mr. Fakasi abstained. It is approved, 501. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. We will now have a brief presentation hosted by Mr. Zorn, Mr. Mannion, and Ms. Schultz, and Marie Calhoun.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Wanted to review the City of Southfield septic and sewage system. These are the two ways in which we get rid of wastewater from all the private properties in Southfield. Some background on a big bond initiative we undertook back in 1999, $38.3 million. We installed sanitary sewers almost everywhere that we had not had them available previously. To repay the bond, residents and businesses are charged a fee to tap into the city sewer system, as well as through the resulting sewage charges based upon water usage for individual properties. At the time, there were 1,600 properties on septic. I think over the last several years, we have more confidence in a number that we're probably down around 1,200 or less of properties that are on septic systems. Many of the septic inspections took place back in 1999 through the early 2000s when this program was initiated, and some failing systems were converted to the public sewer system, though enforcement was not as robust as it could be. In 2016, the city stepped up efforts to have more property owners connect to the city sewers. These property owners in this first round with failing systems were initially informed that they had to connect to the city sewer if their septic system was found to be in a failed condition. The Southfield Building Department declared dwellings uninhabitable if the septic system was not working and raw sewage was spilling out onto the property. This was, of course, only if there was a failure to take corrective action. In 2017, the City Council amended Ordinance 1571, which regulates these rules, to allow residents with a failing septic system the option of rebuilding their septic system. Council reduced the sewer tap-in fee from $7,706 to $5,000. This ordinance, 1571, this is the property owners with septic systems. It says they must have their systems inspected every 3 years by a certified inspector. Now, this inspector can even be certified outside of Oakland County as long as they're certified in the state of Michigan. If a septic system fails inspection, owners now have the option to connect to the city sewer or repair their septic systems. Septic versus sewer. Septic systems, just so everyone understands what it is, these are underground wastewater treatment systems on individual properties that are designed to treat that wastewater coming from that building. All septic systems contain a septic tank and a drain field. Inside the tank, bacteria break down solid waste and then liquids flow out to the drain tile field. The responsibility is on the homeowner to maintain these systems, and oftentimes less than ideal soil conditions can make maintenance very challenging. Not everywhere in Southfield are existing soil conditions conducive to a good septic system. The public sewer system is a series of underground pipes that carry wastewater. So this wastewater is then sent to a treatment facility in Detroit and eventually returned to the environment. The only piece of that sewer system that isn't public is the sanitary pipe, or the lead, we'll say, from the building to the public sewer system. The rest of it is all owned and maintained by the public agency. Most of the sewers in this area were all installed by the city and our city jurisdiction, and at some point, most of them then discharge into a county sanitary sewer that the county is responsible for. So how do I get my septic system inspected? The city has a list of certified inspectors that's available from code enforcement, and again, there could be other certified inspectors from any county that could also be used. On-site sewage evaluation forms are filled out by the contractor during the evaluation. Septic system maintenance. Septic systems that are neglected and fail have a negative impact on the environment. It's a health threat to family and neighbors. It's a degradation of the environment. It reduces property values. They're very expensive to repair, particularly if soil conditions are poor. And there's a risk to the public who use the Rouge River watershed for recreation when these contaminants leach into our open water system. A properly functioning septic system will protect and enhance quality of city's surface and groundwater resources. They'll protect the public from disease-causing organisms and will properly dispose of this wastewater. This preserves the city's waterways for recreational enjoyment. A septic system properly converted to a public sewer system does all of this, plus places the responsibility on the city to operate and maintain this public sewer system. At this point, I'm going to turn the rest of the presentation over to Maria Calhoun, our code enforcement manager.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So I would like to talk about some frequently asked questions with regard to septic systems. My septic system did not pass inspection. What should I do? I'd like to report that a vast majority of systems that have been inspected are passing systems. But in the event that a system doesn't pass, you have two options. You may connect to the city sewer system, and the cost varies depending upon the distance from the house to sewer lines and the topography of the property. Or you have the option to repair your broken septic system, and the contact point is through Oakland County. How much will it cost to connect to the city sewer system? $5,000 is the connection or tap fee, and the installation fee charged by the contractor varies depending again upon the property distance to the sewer line. There are options available for residents who are, or property owners who are unable to afford the upfront costs associated with connecting to the city sewer. There is a low-interest loan, which is a 3% interest-only payment for the first 3 years, and the remaining balance is amortized over 15 years, totaling 18 years. There is also a zero-interest loan for income-eligible residents. The loan is administered through the Southfield Home Improvement Program septic program, or SHIP-WAS. It covers the tap fee, installation of sanitary and water lines, elimination of septic tanks, and a minimal storage of construction area. The average septic to sewer loan in Southfield is approximately $9,448.57, excluding the tap fee, with an annual payment of $791.47, which begins in year number 4 of the loan repayment. Environmental and financial impact of a failed septic. A properly maintained and functioning septic system is imperative to the health, safety, and welfare of not only your family, but the entire community. When septic systems are properly inspected and maintained on a routine basis, they can serve as a safe, waste management alternative. When not properly maintained or inspected, they cause contamination of the surface and groundwater resources, which lead to public health and pollution problems. A septic system failure causes untreated sewage to be released and transported to where it shouldn't be. This may cause sewage to come to the surface of the ground, around the tank or drain field, or to back up in the pipes within the home. The environmental and financial impacts of a failed system. There are disadvantages of septic tanks stem from the fact that maintenance and repair are solely the responsibility of the homeowner. Also, the capacity of septic systems is more limited than that of the city sewer lines, as they need ongoing maintenance at the homeowner's expense. Septic tanks must be regularly pumped to prevent backflows and overflow. A septic system that is not properly inspected and maintained can also adversely affect the home's value and the homeowner's ability to sell the property. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. We will now move into public communications portion of our agenda. That presentation was promoted for informational purposes, and hopefully it might have answered some questions that might come up during the public communications section. With respect to our public meetings, the work of the Southfield City Council and the staff affects from 1 to almost 200,000 people a day. And it's come to my attention, and also other council members, that we want our presentations and our meetings to be held in a very orderly manner and not destructive and or anything that will degrade the effectiveness of our meetings. I will read a statement that on a going forward basis will be read more often during the public communications. This comes out of our rules of procedure for the Southfield City Council. No person may make impersonal or impertinent attacks upon any officer, employee, city council member, or other elected officials that is unrelated to the manner in which that officer, employee, or city council member, or other elected official pertain his or her duties. No person shall use threatening, abusive, or vulgar language when addressing the city council. Public comments within the public hearing must directly relate to the matter which is the subject of the public hearing. Any person who violates this section shall be directed by the presiding officer to be orderly and silent. If a person addressing the council refuses to become silent when so directed, such person may be deemed by the presiding officer to have committed a breach of the peace by disrupting and or impeding the orderly conduct of the public meeting of the city council, and may be ordered by the presiding officer to leave the meeting. If the person refuses to leave as directed, the presiding officer may direct any law enforcement officer who is present to escort the violator from the meeting. A person who has been escorted by a law enforcement officer from the city council meeting for a breach of the peace 2 times within 1 calendar year may, not following the applicable rules during a council session, disturb the peace at a council meeting, or endanger the safety of a council or public of the public at a public meeting, that individual may also have further restriction placed upon them as necessary, including forfeiture of their right to speak at or right to attend future council meetings. Such actions are to be determined by the council and shall be consistent with the Michigan Open Meetings Act. So with that, I would like to start our public communications. The first person to be recognized will be Ms. Constance Bell. Ms. Bell may not perhaps be available. The next person to be recognized would be the Donicus Consulting and Development.
Hi, good evening. I'm not here to talk about the septic tonight, but good to see the council again. My name is Jake Sherman. I'm from Damascus Consulting and Development. We're at 169 West Clarkston Road in Lake Orion. I'm here tonight on behalf of Northwest Labs. Northwest Labs and I are very interested in pursuing an opt-in to the Medical Marijuana Facility Licensing Act for safety compliance in labs here in the city of Southfield. It's been my pleasure to meet some of the council at a tour of the Northwest Labs facility, as well as other key members of the community who have toured the lab. I'm here this evening to ask the council to act on opting in sooner rather than later, as it'll take several months for proper construction of the new Northwest Labs facility. Further, as many of you know from seeing the facility firsthand, no other lab compares to the level of excellence that Northwest Labs intends to bring to their facility. I'd also like to remind you all a bit about the MMFLA. At its most basic form, the act requires a municipality to adopt an ordinance for a medical marijuana facility, which is principally a planning and zoning strategy. The primary objective then is to create an ordinance detailing the types of licenses permitted and where said facilities can operate. Our firm has nearly a decade of experience with planning and zoning, and with this expertise, we've written several MMFLA model ordinances, many of which have been enacted throughout the state of Michigan. Perhaps most importantly, from the council's perspective, there are many benefits a municipality can gain from opting in now, especially with recreational coming up for a vote in November. It makes sense for the city to opt in now and have total control over crafting their own ordinance. You can write the ordinance exactly as you want it, placing limits on zoning, the number of facility types allowed, etc. Also, the city can collect the traditional fees associated with operating a business, and in addition, they may assess a fee of up to $5,000 annually per license. The state will also be collecting an excise tax of 3% from licensees. 25% of those total funds collected from the excise tax will be dispersed amongst the municipalities who have opted in. And based on the Michigan Senate fiscal analysis, they're anticipating this fund to collect $24 million in the first year alone. In conclusion, it's my pleasure to be here on behalf of Damascus Consulting and Northwest Labs. They love doing business with the city of Southfield. They look forward to pursuing this opt-in for safety compliance here in the city. I ask that the council act on this issue so that Northwest Labs can begin construction soon on their facility, and looking towards November, that Southfield can begin to think about creating an ordinance that affords them complete control of what happens in their city. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Next person to be recognized is Ms. Pamela Gerald. Seeing she's not here, next person to be recognized will be Mr. Mullen. He's not here. Next person to be recognized is Ms. Linda Varner. I will reinforce the fact that we have 3 minutes. Everyone, you should come up individually, not at once, please.
My name is Linda Varner, 22396 Maplewood Drive. I'm here for the Beechwood Acres Homeowner Association, and we do have a list of demands. We would like a fair enforcement of Ordinance 1571 for our septic tanks. We would like a free tap fee for those who wish to connect to the city sewer. We also would like a refund for the tap fees for the residents who have not received their refunds. And we also would like for the septic inspection to be 5 years instead of every 3 years. One of the reasons that we are asking for fair enforcement is because countless neighborhoods in the communities around the city of Southfield are exempt from the Ordinance 1571. The Hooper Avenue, Simmons Avenue, and the neighborhoods of the community surrounding the Lawrence Technology University. These cities has had more than enough time to run city sewer pipes throughout all the city neighborhoods and the community. Why has the city not done so? It's been over 20 years since the Ordinance 1571 was enacted. All areas across the entire city of Southfield should and must have access to the city connector. Why haven't it? Excuse me. Why haven't the city of Southfield provided equal access to city sewers connecting to all residents to fairly and equally enforce Ordinance 1571 to all residents, property with septic tank systems? To truly end this unfair and selective enforcement of Ordinance 1571, then all areas, including the ones that were mentioned, should also have be done the same way. Moreover, the city of Southfield executes selected enforcement on this universal ordinance of 1571, failing to require inspection every 3 years on all septic tanks, spanning 20 years when the demographic and population was primarily white, then started up enforcing this spanning once the population and the demographic was primarily African American.
Thank you. The next person to be recognized is Chris Bobo, B-O-B-O. I'm sorry. Mr. Zorn would like to comment.
If they have a written statement, it would just help us out. If we could have that so we can track responses.
Okay. All right, if you have written statements with specific questions, please share those with Mr. Zorn by way of our clerk, and then we can craft a direct response to your questions and or your concerns. Okay. The next person to be recognized is Chris Bobo, that's B-O-B-O. If they are not here, the next person will be Nina Bobo.
Hello. I'm sorry, Chris Bobo is my husband, but he had to be at work this evening.
Okay.
I am a new resident to the area. We recently moved in at the end of the last year. And we have gone to our HOA meetings, and we have become aware of a lot of the discrepancies that are involved into the Ordinance 1571. Had we known this prior to buying this house, we probably would never have moved to Southfield. But I am here to support our HOA and ask that we have the fair enforcement of the Ordinance of 1571 on the septic tanks. We are asking for 5 years inspections instead of the 3 years. For those that wish to tap in, that it is a free fee, and that those that have already done so be refunded because they had such an exuberant expense. There's additional points that we really would like to have hit, like rescinding the ordinance altogether. And I am not able to speak to this yet, but I know several of my neighbors have had issues with power outages, so I will let them speak to that for you.
Sure. Right. The next person to be recognized is Stacy Dick.
Hello, my name is Stacy Dick, 21770 Maplewood Drive, Southfield, Michigan. I am the past president of the Beechwood Acres Homeowners Association, and I stood before you probably a year ago on this same issue. But last week, Mayor Siver gave me a phone call and informed me that letters had gone out to residents of Southfield basically stating that they are forced to hook up to the city sewer. Not that we had the option of replacing our septic field. I told the mayor, "Are you sure you're telling me this?" And he says, "Absolutely. I'm very sad about this." And my comment to him was, a year ago we discussed what was going to happen. How could a year later letters go out incorrectly to our residents, basically stating what we have been fighting for all along, or not stating what we have been fighting for. What I also told the mayor was, when we had the meeting a year ago at the middle school, I was one of the strongest components of Southfield, basically trying to tell everyone at that meeting that we have to believe in Southfield and we have to give Southfield an opportunity to do what they said they were going to do. I am now rescinding what I said because what he told me, I was just appalled. How could we allow letters to go out to our residents being completely wrong? So when you see everyone that's here today, it's because of the lack of trust and the lack of working together to make this a reality. There's not a lot of effort required to change letters. So again, I say, my lack of trust is here. I don't understand what's going on and why we are not working together to resolve this situation. And I ask that we stop playing games and get all the parties together so that we can truly resolve this issue. I am in complete support of everything that's in this letter that will be presented to you, and I will be here and as long as it takes to make sure that this is done. And in the last 41 seconds, I also understand that residents have told me that they've gone to the county, and the county has said, yes, you are required to hook up to the city sewer. And again, I asked the mayor, why would the county be saying one thing and the city of Southfield saying something else? Again, why are we not working together? Why are we not working together to resolve this issue? And that is what I would like us to do. Work together and be truthful so that we all can have a great Southfield, and Beechwood Acres and all the residents will not have to be afraid and scared that you are not telling the truth.
Thank you. The next person to be recognized is Ms. Kimberly Mosley.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Kimberly Mosley Madison. I am not a resident of Southfield, but just like Nina, I'm doing my research now. My husband and I, he's sitting back there, we're debating, do we want to move to Southfield or go to West Bloomfield? I'm here and I've attended 2 of the HOH meetings, and I'm very disappointed with the way how you all conduct business. Coming from Washtenaw County, I just don't know if I want to deal with this. I've attended the 2 meetings and this one. My husband has his own business. I work. The tax base is just like the taxes that we would be paying for this house on Maplewood and the services that I see you all provide, I'm just disappointed. Tonight, when I see that the city bonded in 1999 and you still have this issue, it's just very disappointing. And I don't know how you're supposed to attract business people to this community. I would want to live closer to my sister that's here, but I don't want to go through this headache. So I'm just here to support, but I don't know what the city could offer new homeowners. It's just very disappointing. The house we were looking at, the price on it, what, $280, and then to have to deal with the septic tank issue. I find it just ridiculous that this is still an issue, and the support from city council and all the city officials. I just don't think we can come here. I really don't think I had made up my mind until tonight, but I'm sorry. Thank you.
Mr. President?
Mr.
I'd like to just comment. Ma'am, obviously, I wish you the best of luck in making that decision. You're in Pittsburgh Township today.
Yes,
Pittsburgh Township, if you are on septic at point of sale, you have to connect. They offer no loan program. West Bloomfield only has a 5-year loan program. I believe it's at 6% interest. So I just point that out. You're offering 18% at 3% interest. The old interest rate here used to be 6%. I get a call once every 2 weeks for someone, why am I paying 6% when the new ones are at 3? Why did I pay $7,600 for a tap when the new person, I think Maria Calhoun has processed over 25 loans in the last 2 months at these terms. So as you look at it, and the 3-year inspection period is a state requirement. So all of Wayne County and Washtenaw County, if septic is available, if sewer is available, you have to connect. Oakland County has not put that type of rule in, and for the record, the code department has helped one resident connect to and install a new septic system, I believe on Circle Drive. Code Officer Calhoun has held that person's hand through that process. So I'm a bit confused about the county saying, no, you can't do it. We know for a fact one has in fact rebuilt. So I wish you luck in your search for the business in that. And
that's fine. We were on sewer in Pittsfield, so that's fine. And I'm going to do my homework before we sign for.
And I applaud you for that. I just looked up Pittsford's code 2 days ago in Washtenaw County, Pittsfield Township. What their code is, anywhere in Washtenaw County, if sewer's available at point of sale. We don't have a point of sale here. I will tell you, our friends in Lansing who loaned us the 2.5% money on these bonds, they're asking why we don't. So there's other pressure points in this from both the Michigan MDQ and the federal funds that we use to finance this $38 million investment.
Okay.
Mr. President, perhaps before you leave, maybe I can give you a little bit of history on the sewers on the west side. For a long time, the people on the west side resisted going on sewers.
Okay.
What happened is if a person's septic system failed, they would come to our public works and say, why don't you put sewers in? And our rule is, we will do this if 60% of the people that own property agree that we should do that. That person would go down the street and ask people, would you like to have sewers in? Their septic system was working fine. They said no. So they would go to the first person would go to the expense of replacing their septic system. A couple of years later, somebody's system down the street failed, go through the whole same thing again. Our director of public works came to the city council and said, we can be leapfrogging these people forever. Why don't we bite the bullet and put the sewer lines in so that when the septic system fails, then they can connect to the sewer system. We did that. All the people on the west side were in a big uproar and almost took the tarred and feathered the public works director because they said, you're going to force us to connect. We don't want to connect. So we did make a deal. You don't have to connect until you can't fix your septic system. And that's where we're at. Since Mr. Zorna's been here, negotiations have been made to make it easier for the people to connect. So the people that are coming before us, many of them bought their houses because they came from an area that they had sewers. They bought their house without even thinking about septic systems because they didn't even know what a septic system was. After they purchased the house, they found out they had a septic system and that there are requirements involving a septic system. They're upset because they think that we should allow them to connect for free when you don't get stuff for free. We've tried to make it as easy as possible, but it's costly, and we borrowed, what, $38 million?
20 years ago.
Put the sewer system in so the people that needed to connect to it, it was there. So if your septic system fails and you build a new septic system, it can be anywhere from $15,000 to $30,000, depending on how far you have to set your.
Right.
your-
So then what is your title, sir?
City Administrator?
Okay. And then while attending some of the meetings that I attended, I understand the city made a decision to change over Northland to the sewer system, and you're not charging the businesses?
Northland?
Yeah, isn't that what was
I-
told in that meeting?
Northland's always had a sewer system.
Oh, it was reported that it was switched over.
Well, every time people come to the microphone, there's a lot of misunderstanding and opinions, but not necessarily always facts.
Okay, well, like I
And
said, we haven't signed yet, so
I'm
we
gonna
were
join-
doing our homework up front.
Yes, I'm going to join my city administrator and hope you make the best decision for you.
Thank you.
And ma'am, as you're doing your homework though, Maria, my code department, they have dealt with over 800 of these in the last 2 years. We're about halfway through. It is a very difficult and challenging exercise because it was never enforced. That part is true. But now that we are, it should have been enforced when the market crashed, the city backed off from enforcement. At one point, the county was under contract to do the inspections. The county was only doing 40 a year. If you have 2,000 and you're supposed to get through every 3 years, you should be doing about 660 a year. And that wasn't happening. And I will tell you, we're working on financing additional repairs to the city's stormwater system, not the sanitary, on the east side of the city. And as we go through the financing, questions are being asked about the 38 million, the amount of debt we retired, how many people actually paid the connection. 2,000 people at 7,000 per home should have generated $14 million to retire the debt, and it hasn't happened. So the system has been carried by all of our other users. So as we go through these equations, I've got people, MDQ, these were federal dollars in the state revolving loan fund, asking very basic questions. Well, it's been 20 years, how many people are in compliance? These questions really started popping up 2015-16. We put a program in place in 2016, one-third, one-third, one-third. Try to get through that first cycle. As Maria Calhoun indicated, most people are passing. And if they pass, no issue. The other thing, as you go through this exercise and doing your homework, Maria can show you the loan documents, what average costs are and what we're seeing. But if you're looking for a home, and we still have some businesses that are on this too. And I wasn't sure if it was a home or business you're looking for, but we could help you out with those numbers, what it might be. And, we're happy to see you be successful in that. And the property you're looking at may pass and there's no issue. And you're good for 3 years.
That it passed
Yep.
in 16.
So-
The tank itself was installed in 96.
Yep.
So it has PVC instead of this clay piping. So,
If it's properly maintained, it'll last for a long time.
okay, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
All righty. I hope the audience and everyone here understand that we are trying to be as agreeable and as friendly as possible with respect to this particular issue. And that's one of the reasons that I wanted the presentation made before our audience here, this presentation on Sewer 101. And hopefully a lot of questions were answered there. But if you still have lingering questions after we get through this process, just write them down, give them to our city administrator by way of the clerk, and I guarantee you, you'll get an answer. You might not get the answer that you want, but we are trying to be open and as honest as possible. This is and personally, I want everybody, and I think the council want everybody in the city of Southfield homeowners, businesses, visitors to be pleased with the city of Southfield, and obviously the homeowners and the residents, always to be as pleased as you possibly can. So the next person would be item J, Ms. Irma Walton. Ms. Teresa Perry. Estes Davis Jr. The next item would be Mr. Charles Walton. Item N, Mr. Covilla Morgan.
Good evening, Council President and all council members. My name is Clavilla Morgan. I have been a resident of Southfield for the past 21 years, and I too stand firmly along with the Beechwood Acres Association as well as all other conjoining associations that we have the city of Southfield to execute fair enforcement of Ordinance 1571 and to end selective enforcement of the Universal Ordinance 1571. We're asking for a free tap-in fee for all residents that choose to connect with the city sewer. We also ask that septic inspections to occur every 5 years instead of every 3 years. During the time that I've been here, I have yet to have seen any particular ordinance to come to my door requiring that I do the inspection at the rate of 3 years, or prior to that, have I had the information brought to the forefront other than at my association meetings. And my concern is, once something is brought to our attention as concerned citizens, we love Southfield, but we'd like to see things done equitably and fairly where people are apprised as to what is happening prior to the deadline. And it seems like we're pushed up against a wall where we have a deadline at this point. We're asking that residents have a right to repair, replace, or connect to the city sewer. And we're asking for a refund of tap-in fees to entitled residents, that it be dispersed at the same time and within a reasonable time to entitled residents. Some people weren't aware of things that were happening. They've already paid, and I feel like that this is something that should be given to them, as well as those going forth to also be given theirs for free. So if the reimbursement happens, we're fine with that. The free tap-ins, that's what we're asking for at this time. I'm going to jump to one of the concerns that was on the list, that it was an additional point, and that is that of the power outages. As of last year, it seems that Southfield grid past the Beechwood Association area, we seem to have suffered a very serious power outage, and it lasted a very long time. It was the most inconvenient time for me. It was at the time in which my husband passed. Everyone that came in town to be there with me, we were forced out of our house for a total of 10 days. And during that time, myself, as well as all the people that came out of town to be with me, were forced to go to hotels. But however, I did have my children, I moved in with them for the period of 10 days. It was very inconveniencing. At this time, I know there's such things as the generators. I've tried to even look at that. Very, very expensive.
Ms. Morgan.
Even the Generacs and things like that.
Ms. Morgan, you had 3 minutes. You use your time. Thank you,
Okay.
ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. The next person is Ms. Joan Webb.
Hi, I'm Joan Webb, and I live at 22419 Maplewood Drive. I'm Vice President of the Beechwood Acres Homeowners Association. I'm here tonight to relay my concerns about Ordinance 1571. Problems with my knees and the prospect of being able to live in my home in later years made my ranch an appealing option. I moved here in June of 2016. I'm thrilled to know that the city of Southfield has become part of the AARP network of age-friendly communities as of March of 2017. However, I'm worried about myself and other seniors. The rules and fees associated with this ordinance place us in extreme peril of losing our homes. Having to pay an inspection every 3 years can be expensive on a limited budget. Hooking up to the city system is downright impossible on a fixed income. Adding a finance agreement would make my water bills higher than my high taxes. This is not a senior-friendly ordinance as far as I'm concerned. I urge you all to take some time to make some serious changes or even consider rescinding Ordinance 1571. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. David Nedock.
Good evening. My name is David Nedock. I live at 22278 Prosper Drive here in Southfield. I've lived here approximately 30 years, and I've been the the Burton Woods Homeowner Association president for the last 25 years. Recently, and obviously I'm here talking about Ordinance 1571, on September 12th I received a letter from the mayor stating that the systems needed to be re-inspected. Rates for tap-in fees have been dropped somewhat, and that no one was being forced to connect. My system could be repaired if I chose to do that. And on September 14th, I get a letter from the Code Enforcement Department saying that I have 30 days to inspect my system, prove that it's functional. If not, I would be cited and be required to appear in 46 District Court to explain myself. So there is a lot of confusion, perhaps, about what is fair enforcement here. I've heard that people on homes near or being rented from Lawrence Tech, they've been excluded from this issue of inspection altogether. So there's a lot of up and down. The group that I work with is very angry. It'd really be unfortunate to watch their anger manifest itself towards other issues within the city when we really should be focused on what's going on here with the septic systems. In my area, I'm the only person that received a letter. Nobody else has received a letter. A number of the other members here of the group we're working with, no one's received information. I've received packets, and I would suggest the letter I got from the Code Enforcement is somewhat threatening. And so I think that perhaps my misunderstanding, what you intend to do, and your misunderstanding of how we are interpreting what you're telling us should be resolved. I don't think I should get a letter one day saying I can repair my system, on the next day say if I don't repair it, I'm going to be dragged into court. So I think a reconsideration of what is fair and equitable assessment of this ordinance, how it applies to everybody. You've been able to reduce the fee from one time to $7,700 to $5,000, based on what this lady was saying. A lot of senior citizens, myself, I'm 70, retired. I think making it a free hookup is tolerable. Perhaps there's ways the city could finance that. Maybe you could look at something to do with the selling of the homes that you get on tax-free, whatever it is. You know, additionally, I lost my train of thought. But I really appreciate you taking the time to listen to us. And there's a lot of angry people here that are looking to you guys for your help, your guidance, your assistance. And I know if you guys pull together, you can help address what our concerns are. You know, one other thing is I did get a hold of people to try and inspect my system within the 30 days. I couldn't find anybody to do it in 30 days.
Okay. Mr. Facada.
Just hear the last thing you said, needed some information.
Did you have?
What was the last few sentence you had there? The last sentence that you read. You needed what help doing what?
Well, I think we need help understanding what's actually going on.
Yeah, but the last sentence that
You're talking about the inspection. You
The
said
last sentence that I said?
Yeah.
I can't find anybody to do my inspection within 30 days. I called 14 people.
Okay, that's.
I can't find anybody to do it in 30 days.
Okay, that's what I wanted to hear.
So, you know, if I gotta go to court in 30 days, aren't we just wasting our time?
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Zorn, is there a list of acceptable contractors?
I'm sorry?
Is there a list of acceptable contractors?
Yeah, we do have a list of contractors that we send out.
Right.
And it's a list provided by the state.
Mhm.
And I know that, I have heard that some on that list are now out of business. And we will be updating the list of contractors. But there is a supply and demand issue that
Right.
I know from just talking with other people, we're having a hard enough time getting inspectors out to do the inspections. And again, if people call, our staff is working with them and trying to get through that. And we've even done an analysis of who's done work, what their prices, whose prices are coming in over bid. And the administration's happy to share some of those numbers with council. That analysis was done in the last week, so.
Right. Well, I'm just thinking about the fact that gentleman indicated that he had an order to get something done in 30 days, but he was going through the process, so he couldn't necessarily find anyone who could do the work for him. But I think if he documents that, I'm assuming the court or the authority that's pushing him will sort of have some leeway.
The court is always the last step, and
Right.
we are working from 6 people for the first year, and we're working with them and, a little bit more hand-holding and getting prices and things like that. But that's the last place we want to be.
Okay, I see Maria's talking to Mr. Nedock now, so.
And if I may, through the chair, I know in general with code enforcement that if someone calls and they have a letter saying they have to have something completed within 30 days, within 2 weeks, if you call and you tell them, well, I've tried several people, or even if it's grass cutting, I know that our code enforcement is very willing to work with you and say, well, how much time do you think you need? We'll give you another 30 days to try and find someone. Let us know when it's scheduled, even if it's not scheduled within 30 days, as long as it's scheduled. They're willing to work with residents, not just with this issue, but with issues in general.
Okay. All righty. The next item is Mr. Darrell Perry. The next item will be Mary Walter Brown, Stacy Jackson,
Good evening.
Good evening.
Stacy Jackson, 21685 Rougeot Drive, Southfield, Michigan, 48033. I come to you as a Southfield resident and the president of Beechwood Acres Homeowners Association, and I stand with the residents of my community and those conjoining associations to express our concern for Ordinance 1571. Let me first start by saying that I have the greatest respect for the collective body that I stand before, because many of you, I am your constituent. I voted for you all to protect my asset, all of my assets, and all of the community's assets of this city. While I appreciate the conversation to many of the speakers coming up tonight, it is heartbreaking and disheartening for me to say that it is all colorful things for all of you to literally take accountability for dropping the ball. We voted you in and were appointed to communicate, to handle the city's affairs, to handle those affairs for the residents. It was a wonderful PowerPoint presentation, of which I hope you refer to. The ordinance was enacted in 1999. There's constant communication that it stepped up in 2016. That is an inaccuracy. It started in 2016. If the ordinance was started in 1999, that would mean that today, every house in this city that has a septic connection would have at least 7 inspections on file. You know what most of them have? 1, 2016. Please know that just as a matter of weeks ago, that code enforcement sent out a very threatening letter that did not indicate that residents had the right to repair or replace or provide any direction of how to do so. What it said was that if you did not have a certification in 30 days, we were going to deem your home uninhabitable, meaning it's abandoned. You can't live there. That is preposterous for elected officials that we voted in to protect us. Now it turns out that when residents do go to the city, we're handed 2 loan packages and told to reach out to the county. What I say to all of you is that we voted you in to fight the county for us. So if it's the county that's saying that our rights are not being honored, then it is up to all of you to fight that for us. Not just put us out there. And that's very interesting to share to the new homeowner, but the truth is, this ordinance went nearly 17 years without ever being enforced. Ever. So a largely predominantly white community was able to go without any inspections at all, and then overturn that to the population being minority. That looks terrible for the city of Southfield. It looks like an unfair housing discrimination. Please, communicate, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Keith Harris.
How are you today? I'm here on the behalf of All Race and Life Matter and the citizens of Southfield. I love what she just said. That's my woman. I'm so proud of her. Let me tell you something. We bought our house with no inspections. If I would have knew that this ordinance exists, no way I would have paid $200,000 for my home. No way. Now, many other residents made the same mistake that I've made. I'm not connecting. You're going to have to take me to court. You're going to have to take my house, and then you're going to have a hell of a fight. But we're mobilizing. We're mobilizing. And you're going to still be in for a fight. We're not setting our homes up for failure for your 501c3 to take them. No longer can we sit here. I'm going to leave you a list of demands. These are not requests. These are demands. And I hope you really pay respect to these demands, because we're expecting an answer on these demands within 30 days. And then I will be mobilizing with every organization to stand in front of this building and do one heck of a news conference. We can no longer take this kind of harassment and threats. I didn't hear Maria Calhoun say nothing about the 200 feet rule. There was a 200 feet rule a year ago. A year ago, we were told by the county that all we needed was the city's permission. Now all of a sudden you'd have made the county the heavy. We can't have that. We can't have this. I mean, just a lack of communication of everybody flip-flopping around with these ordinances. And then we got residents who have been deliberately sabotaged. Jerry, I'm calling his name out. I was deliberately targeted by Jerry, where a guy came to my house and deliberately sabotaged my septic tank. This is unheard of, which you will be receiving again shortly, legal action. We as the homeowners, we are making a stand. People all around the country are hearing us. They have the same situation in Philadelphia, but they gave the homeowners a one option, not an option where they had $10,000 to connect or replace, not $20,000, not $30,000, not everything that you're putting the homeowners here through. We must find a solution, an immediate solution, because this is going to turn out to a bare knuckle fight, a real bare knuckle. This is people's homes, cost of living. You're talking about medicine, co-pays, higher water bills. Nobody can survive with this setup. It's a setup for failure, especially for African American people. So I'm kindly asking you, change the ordinance, connect with the people, and think about what you see in this letter, because we're not losing our homes. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. William Sampson? Simpson?
Sims, I think.
It says Simpson here.
No.
Okay.
All right, Mr. William Simpson.
It's right here.
On here it says,
Or he wrote it. It says Sims.
all right, is Mr. William Sims, Simpson, not here. Zola Sims, S-I-M-S, Zola. All right. Item W, Tanda Mitchell.
Hello.
Hi.
My name is Tantinda Mitchell. It is spelled wrong. I am standing on the position for the fairness of the enforcement of the ordinance 1571. I am also a resident of Southfield in the Beechwood Acres neighborhood. And there are residents who receive letters to get their properties inspected and require inspection to be done by 30 days. And there are some who never receive the letters. And there are also some who are exempt of the ordinance. And some instances where there has been no enforcement at all. I believe that it is my position that the ordinance should be rescinded, due to the lack of the enforcement and fairness. I was at the meeting in October the 25th of last year when it was a big old turnout of the residents of Southfield. I was also at another meeting where Ken Siver said that he would like to bring young people to Southfield, where we won't be able to afford to move to Southfield if we have to deal with these issues as well. I think it's unfair for the seniors to have to go through something like this when they're supposed to be enjoying their years here. I think that it's a lack of communication and also a lack of, well, it's actually contradicting. Some things are contradicting with this ordinance, and I think that it should be resolved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Fred Bunker.
Good evening again. We've got some lack of communications between our elected officials and these heads of departments. I guess we can't use names, but a Mrs. C in code enforcement made herself unavailable. I didn't get any mail about septic tanks. I wasn't in the state. This letter wasn't forwarded. I got a 10-day notice sometime in July, and I called the people who do my septic and who installed a new one 9 years ago. I figured I didn't get any mail about it because my septic's brand new. No. And Miss Calhoun, knowing that I had called and set up, I'm contracted with, they tell you which name to tell who you contracted with. And about 2 weeks later, I get a letter with a court date and 2 $500 tickets for not having my septic inspected by July 31st, when I only heard about it on July 21st. I called this company, they were 3 weeks backed up. I had my septic inspected, and for 5 days I came to City Hall. Miss Calhoun could not be reached. Twice I was told, well, her office door is locked. So I went over to the city attorney's office, and they emailed this Mrs. C, the head of code enforcement, and she said my case was dismissed. I shouldn't have to, I was going to face a $100 fee in addition to go to court to prove that this brand new septic I installed, like we were talking about, when the orders came. I wanted to fix it up. I have an organic garden. But with 18-wheel trucks using the dead-end street, my road has been turned into without a barricade at the end. You ever hear of a dead-end street without a barricade to prevent traffic from going east and west? We spent $68,000. Right, Mr. Fracassi? Did you vote to dead-end my street through the chair for the permanent official record? Is that an appropriate way to ask a question, City Council President? Mr. Fracassi, you voted to dead-end Garner for the permanent official record through the chair? For what purpose this was done, we haven't been explained to. There were 200 people signed a petition that all live in Mr. Frazier's subdivision. He voted in favor of dead-ending my street for the permanent official record through the chair. These people are ganging up on us. They want to use our street Well, him and his neighbors use it for 18-wheel online delivery, Van White, our Gardner White furniture, septic tanks, lawn vehicles. What kind of dead end allows that much traffic to enter your subdivision? City Council President, through the City Council President to the council member from Green Dolphin.
It's not a dead-end street.
No, it isn't.
It isn't.
Well, why
It
did
never was
people get
designed.
tickets?
It never was designed to be a dead-end
Why
street.
you told me people got tickets after
It's a
you made
one-way
phone
out.
call.
It's a one-way out. It's not dead end. So
You spent
You've got an op-
$68,000
you've got
putting
an
up signs
opinion.
that say road closed, do not enter.
you have an
That's
opinion.
not a dead end.
You have opinion, but you don't have facts.
How is it commercial vehicles are using a residential street to park, like school buses in a residential neighborhood? Where do we have school buses parking in a residential neighborhood? Through the chair for the
I think the-
permanent
I think the
official
chair said your 3
rector.
minutes
Why do
were
we
up.
have dumpsters installed on R1 zoned property? Why did a site plan describe
Mr. Officer,
46 and a
Mr.
half
Officer, would
acres?
you ask Mr. Bunker?
I'll leave on my own. If you don't want to answer my
Would-
questions, I'll leave on my own. Thank you for your respect in turning my street into a not dead end.
Okay, that ends the public communications section of our agenda. We will now move into the council portions, and we have some expense reports.
Mr. President, I'd like to move approval of travel expense report for Daniel Brightwell.
Support.
Been moved by Mr. Cruz, supported by Mr. Frazier, that we approve the expense report for Daniel Brightwell. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It is approved.
Mr. President, I'd also like to move approval for the travel expense for Donald Fracassi.
Support.
It was moved by Mr. Cruz and supported by Mr. Mandelbaum that we approve the expensive report for Mr. Donald Facassi. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Let the records indicate I abstain.
Mr. Facassi abstained. All right, we have any other comments on the council? Ms. Taylor?
Thank you. Just a couple of things. First of all, before everyone leaves, just so you know, the council was not aware of any of the letters that you received. We have not seen those letters. So just hearing from you is the first time that we've heard of letters going out to you. Well, we knew that the letters was going out from the last meeting, but we've not seen those letters at all. And for all of you who did vote for us, as you stated, I want to say thank you, and we are here to help work whatever situations we can out with you. We want everyone to stay here in the city of Southfield. We do respect you as homeowners, and we will do all that we can to help work with you on that. Very sorry for all of the confusion and everything that's going on, but we'll have to take a deeper dive into it, because honestly, I have not seen the letters. I have not read not one. So for myself, I have not seen them. So for that, I can apologize for all the confusion that you're going through. Thank you. Then I'd like to ask, I know, Fred, we had talked before about Cable 15 televising the public hearings for both ZBA and the planning, and I thought you said you were going to tell us tonight if you had sent the letter through or not. Did I misunderstand?
We did discuss that, but I had also requested from the Department of Cable Analysis, and their fees are being decreased, the PEG fees, and I just got this last week, but their current revenues are about $1,024,000. They're scheduled to continue to go down as part of the PEG, and we actually have projections that I want to finish going through some analysis, but right now, the fiscal projection for cable is their PEG fees. This is from our financial office, from FY16 of a little over $1 million to $568,000. Although the expenditure that to televise both the planning and the ZBA is probably about $8,000 a year. It's not as simple as turning on a switch. But I think in fiscal prudency, we've got to look at the entire thing. You have a cable department that may soon require a general fund subsidy. And as we were going through this is part of when the communication started on this, I put a request in to the manager for this analysis, and I finally had to go to my financial people to put it together. We're not opposed to televising the ZBA and the planning commission meeting, as you and I had discussed. A number of our neighboring communities do it, although I have to look at the entire fiscal. I also have substantial raise requests from a number of non-career people in this group, that all of that needs to be weighed out. I'm happy to put this on the study session for the 22nd. And, you know, I just think that going forward, looking at these things, we can. You just got a request to drop your taxes 25% in here. A number of things that you don't have the authority to do by state law. And I think everyone should take a look at some of these demands, because these are real interesting. I'm happy to see, drop taxes 25%. When everything we do is by state law, 50% reduction for residents 62 and older, and for every resident who's been forced off their septic system, should get a 65% tax reduction. You're running a business here, and your financial matters, they do matter. So I'm happy to put this on the agenda the 22nd.
Yep, I would love for us to do that, because my understanding is somebody's going to be here anyway. They come in from cable, they turn the lights on, turn the microphones on, and they're there anyway, so when someone comes to the mic, that it's turned on. So the person is not an additional cost as far as that goes, because the person is already here. So yeah, I would love to go ahead and discuss it at the meeting. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Frazier.
Yes, Ms. Taylor beat me to the punch, because I was also sort of mystified by the stories that I heard at the microphone. And as the chair of the legislative committee, I would like to have all the documentation that went out, that people are talking about from us, because if they're anywhere near right, it sounded very confusing. So we'll talk about that in the legislative committee. If we can get our hands on all of the material so we can sort through it.
Okay.
And it would be also helpful, I think, to have copies of what the individuals gave to the staff, so that we can look at that also.
All right.
Okay?
Any more from council? Mr. Mandelbaum.
To the city administrator, a couple of questions in regards to the septic issue.
Sure.
How many homes how many people, I guess, were removed from their homes because their tanks did not meet qualifications?
Have been removed from their homes?
Or have their homes condemned?
No one. How many have been?
I mean, how many homes have been condemned, or how many people have had to vacate their homes because of the septic sewer issue?
No one has lost their home because of this. Roughly, when this program started in 1999, it was estimated a little over 2,000 people. When we started this exercise, we got the count down to about 1,650. The first letter went out, indicated, and now I'm talking 2016, the statement was something to the effect, our records indicate that you may be on septic. As we went through at first approximately 550 homes, we found out that some people were in fact on sewer, never pulled permits. Some people, we couldn't find any indication that it was ever inspected. We cleaned and resolved those issues, got the systems inspected, moved forward. There were no back charges to anyone. So we really, when you put that system together at $7,000 per home, you were counting on $14 million of a $38 million project coming from tap fees. You now reduce the tap fee from that 7,600 figure to 5,000. You probably gave up with that move about I figure about 4.5 to 5 million in revenues to your water system. In addition, each home that does tap picks up it pays about another $180 a year into the system. So your system has lost all of that revenue over the last 17 years. So it's not just what you didn't collect in tap fees in the anticipated plan, but you also lost those revenues from the additional sewage charges. We'll put all of the letters together. There were a number of these documents I'm looking at. To my knowledge, I've never seen anyone pay near $30,000 for a system. The one letter says people paid up to $50,000. We've got the permits that people paid and what they pulled, plus the tap fees. So we know what people are paying. And then on the average figure is on the loans we've done. I think we've done a little over 300 loans. We've got active loans. Now on the refund, anyone who paid cash, and I think if Diane Pargoff is still here, I thought she's left. I think there are about 23 people who paid cash for their systems since January of 16. And that was the date we started with that ordinance. Those refund checks have been issued, all except for 2 who never had their final inspections on their systems. We are working with them to get their final inspections so we can issue the refund check. The others who are on the 18-year amortization interest only, their amortization schedules will be recalculated to deduct that amount. They're not going to get a refund. I've had people who have a loan calling saying, when am I going to get my check? Well, if we loaned you the money, we're simply going to deduct it from your loan. We're not going to refund you for something you haven't paid. The other, and I am constantly shocked at the number of people who have bought homes and didn't know they were on septic. I've had people come in and, did you get a housing inspection report? I usually find it in their housing inspection report that it was disclosed. But it's also a very exciting time for homeowners. They miss these things in these reports. They don't realize the magnitude of the cost of that, so.
And then, there was one of the speakers mentioned Oakland County as it relates to the septic issue, and I thought that the county did not want us to allow people to repair their septic and would prefer that we essentially force them into the city sewer. Am I understanding that correctly?
I'm not sure if I understand the question.
So we currently give people the option, if their septic tanks fail, that they can either repair it or they can...
They can repair it or replace it, and I know we've had one on Circle Drive and one of the Rouge Streets done. And again, our staff worked with them to get that. So I'm not sure what the county is telling folks, but I know for a fact 2 people have rebuilt their system. So, and I know the county's not happy that we're allowing people to do that. I do know that. Because when we put this ordinance in place, there were discussions. They felt if we had the system in place, people should connect. But 2 people have rebuilt their systems, and they're up and running, so.
Okay, thank you.
And yet, when developers go out to the greenfield and start building houses, new subdivision, they're on septic, because there's no water, there's no sewer out in the country. So.
And those developers pay a tap fee for every sanitary line they get. And if you'll recall, about 3 years ago, we put that tap fee consistent with the rest of the county. So if you're building a new subdivision, every time you put a sanitary lead in, you pay the going rate.
Yeah. And the other piece of that is, ever since the sewer system's gone in on the west side, the rest of the community has paid the bill for the bonding that we did. So.
Give you a little history. There's a guy named Urex and Riley, and they had Taxpayers League. You probably remember them, don't you, Myron? Right? Anyways, that's why you're running sewers down the Rouge underneath the water, and it took us to court, and we lost in court, and that's why you have all those pumping stations. So, these people do things, they don't know how much, they're hurting the city in which they live. And the cost of putting all those pumps in to push the water up to go out.
Right.
I think, how many are there, 16 or something like that?
And every home's different. I mean, we do have some homes that aren't gravity fed, and they have to have pumps, and that's when it's very costly.
Thank you.
Go ahead. You got anything else?
I just had two just quick things for those who are still listening or going to watch this later. But this, and I thank Ms. Taylor for making some announcements as I was absent the last meeting. But again, this Saturday, October 20th, is our Boo Bash here at Parks and Rec in the Southfield Pavilion. There is a small fee for those to attend. Adults are free, but there is a admission fee for those who are ages 2 through 12. And again, that's this Saturday from 2 to 4:30. And then also for those who want to get in a little bit more golf in the season, during the entire month of October over at the Beachwoods driving range, if you bring in 2 or more non-perishable food items, you get $2 off any size bucket of balls. So if you want to clean out your pantry, if you have food you're not going to be using, bring it in. We will definitely be put to good use in with Gleaner's Food Bank. So 2 items of non-perishable food, and you get $2 off any size bucket of balls. Thank you very much for attending, and we'll see you at the next meeting.
Go ahead.
Yes. Through. Yeah, you know, Fred, I don't know how to say it, but I am so embarrassed at this Evergreen Road between 11 and 12. I just don't understand it. I'd really like to have a down-and-out discussion on how that road was done and why it looks the way it is. I mean, that thing cracked. I told you from the very beginning, it started cracking. Now they tarred it. And all the, this thing looks like it's the road that was done 10 years ago. And what we pay for roads to be done in this city and inspections, that's embarrassing. If you just are 11 or 12, I would just tell anybody to run down that street. It's all it is, just like marbled with all this tar. There happen to be, what, a couple hundred cracks in it. That's a new road. It's not even a year old.
I can have, I'll ask the city engineer to schedule and bring in the design engineers as well, but we can schedule that for the 22nd as well.
Yeah, I asked Lee, and Lee told me something to the effect that that's the way they did it. And it was a low-cost roadway. I said, you gotta be kidding me. I don't know, I put it on the spot, but I mean, I couldn't get an explanation of why, number one, why it cracked, why it wasn't completely redone and done right. And she said that was a cheaper way to do it. And I can't buy that.
I need to bring the engineers into that. It was not a complete reconstruction. It was the equivalent of a mill and cap. But I'm not in disagreement with you that that road, with the amount of slurrying that has been done, it's very concerning.
You know, it's the talk of everybody in that whole neighborhood, that whole square 2 miles, 3 miles, that go take Evergreen Road. They're put away, they couldn't take that road because they're under construction, and now they see it, and they're saying, you know, this road was just done. You know,
So, but your focus is primarily Evergreen 11 to 12 miles.
Between 11 to 12.
That Winchester, all right.
Yeah, now we got Winchester.
All right.
So we'll have that on the 22nd, then, during the study session. Let Lee explain to us what happened.
Okay.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
I forgot I got one other thing. I received a call from our Congresswoman Brenda Lawrence regarding the GFL, and she said that one of the residents contacted her and was saying that they had like 14 bags of grass chippings or something, and only 10 of them was picked up. And then they said that we have a city ordinance where they can only pick up, or something, that they were only told, they can only pick up 10 bags of rubbish. Is that a true statement?
I can't speak to the accuracy of that statement. It is surprising. There are many people who put 30, 50 bags on their front lawn and get picked up. I don't know, but that's now the second time I've heard that today. We do have GFL scheduled to come in on the 22nd.
Okay. So that's something we can ask.
If I may, through the chair, I can answer that.
Yes, please.
I had a discussion with our Public Works Department on Thursday of last week, bringing the same concern, because there were people in my neighborhood who were tagged 15 bags, no more, and they actually went and started opening cans and counting how many bags people had in their garbage cans and how many bags they had for leaf refuse. But Mr. Searles went through the GFL contract, and it's actually unlimited bags. I think the 15 is a recommendation. Don't put out too much. We still have weight restrictions and everything else, but he did have a conversation with the GFL, and they will be taking unlimited bags.
Okay.
He set that straight with them already.
Okay, so we shouldn't have this issue going forward.
We should not. And he is aware, and that's why he said he already spoke to GFL about it, and we shouldn't have those issues continue.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. Fred, one final item on the septic. And I may have brought this up during a study session and/or one of our other. Since this is a kind of a pesty item, and I've always been the motive just getting things fixed. Is there a possibility, and I don't want to put you on the spot, of getting this septic tank issue resolved within 5 years? I mean, I'm tired of it. I'm tired of this coming up, and the individuals here, they are.
I would love to have it behind us in 5 years. I would like to get through this first cycle. I mean, as the one woman indicated, there were some inspections done, but it was not anything, because as it was said, there should be like 6, 7 inspections on every one of these. That's an accurate statement. There might be one in the whole group, but that's accurate. To be done in 5 years, I guess my counter on that would be, if my system's working, I'm not sure I want to connect.
Okay, well, either way, it can be resolved from a standpoint of having 20 to 30 people show up at our meetings. And not everybody, I'm sure there's a timing process that Mrs. Jones have funds, but I want to get to a point where this is no longer a flashpoint.
Right.
This is just a fact of life. We live, this is how we, sometimes your faucet gets plugged up and those kind of things. But I want to get rid of these flash.
I think if you
5 years, can we just
get through the cycle
revolving?
every 3 years, I think your flashpoint tendency are going to reduce.
Right.
I'll remind you, you've had over 800 people go through this process.
Right.
And, yes, we had a very intense meeting last October. I'm a little confused about some of the statements made tonight, and although, some of this last meeting references of $30,000 and $50,000, I'd like to say, show me who. Right. Show me who's paid $30,000, $50,000, because we don't have any evidence of that.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that every year about this time, we will have these 20 to 30 people coming in because they are being told that you got to do something about your septic tank.
Well, I don't want to tell you anything's not a possibility, but let me just state this. This function is historically been considered a private function. From my right-of-way to my home, that sanitary sewer line or that septic field, like your roof, like your garage door, if you need a new roof, your garage door falls off, that's your responsibility for us to place. Those of us on sanitary sewer lines, when that line collapses, you got to dig up your patio, you lose a tree in your backyard, and you reconnect. Right. And those jobs are $5,000, $6,000 jobs sometimes too. Very, those numbers are more common. So the only way I see this happening is if this were some type of public benefit, but this is not a public benefit. That is a private purpose, that line. The state law doesn't give us the authority to pay for that. Right. Now, some of my peers, I'm going to say this, when I talk to some of our peers about our loan program and that, they ask, what are you doing? Is that truly public purpose? Well, the answer is, last city attorney and I had a very spirited debate about it. We went back and forth. We feel we can demonstrate public purpose. We're protecting the public health of our individual homeowners who live in these homes, because when these systems fail, their backyards have raw sewage. And when we talk about public health, hepatitis, and different diseases, it's what's in their own backyard or their front yard, in certain cases where the fields are, how it impacts their neighbor. We, seems once, twice a year, we have a person who's still on well who has a failed septic. When we do those tests for that water, the fecal count in their water system is beyond acceptable. And we're usually working to connect those people to city water too. So it's the public health and safety, protecting your property values, and protecting the overall environment. Just two council meetings ago, we presented a grant to clean up part of the Rouge value for several $1 million. And most of you are aware, for the last 20 years, we've spent all kinds of money cleaning up the Rouge. We now stock part of the Rouge with fish, and we're seeing some of the wildlife return. But we got to continue these exercises.
Through the chair, going along with what Mr. Brightwell is saying, is there some way we could do like some kind of joint meeting so that everybody hears the same thing, instead of hearing one thing from the city, one thing from the county, one thing from the state? Is there any way we could do some kind of joint meeting just to talk about the septic tanks so that the residents can ask and get their questions answered? I mean, that way everybody will be saying the same thing. We'll know what the county is telling them. We'll know what the state requires.
Gladly schedule a meeting with the Water Resource Commission people. I'll share with council, for several years, the Water Resource Commission is supposed to be working on new rules and how different things, not just septic sewer, but stormwater, how these things are shared. But I think that merits a joint meeting, so.
Yeah, I think just if we make it specific to the septic tanks, the other things, let's not even bring into it. That way we can just concentrate on that. And that way, we can get as many questions answered as possible. I think that's more the lines that you were.
Yeah, I just want to get this out of the way, giving everybody time to
Mr. Chairman,
formalize it and just get it done.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr.
I agree with what you said, if we could get it done and over within 5 years, because Tom Vukic was here, God, longer than 18 years ago. And we had a whole group of West Siders upstairs in Parks and Recreation, and we're talking about the same thing. And then the mayor had one, I think, at Levy School, and he had the county there.
Yep,
And he went through this whole thing again.
Right.
I think what really is missing is that these realtors are selling houses, and they're not telling the people the facts that they're on a septic.
Right.
And they're buying these houses, getting a deal on them, and then all of a sudden, they find out that they don't have a sewer, they got a septic.
Right.
And, if there's anything, something should get out to these realtors, being one, to tell them, hey, this is a must or you're in trouble. You make them available. Everybody in that West End that is buying a house be told that you have a septic. It's the same way as the people buying a house and their taxes triple. And realtors don't tell them that, hey, you know what, that is what the previous people paid, not what you are going to pay.
This item will be one of our goals and objectives. The next time we have a goal-setting session, this item will be there to get this off our things to do over a period of time. And 5 years seem to be doable. If we approach it and say we're going to bite this from an educational standpoint, constantly beat the education side of it. And this is because these flashpoints, it seem like it's they're good for everybody, good for informational purposes, but it's a valuable use of time that we could be putting somewhere else.
Okay.
Although this is an important issue, but it's been popping up for so long that it should be fixed. All right, the next item, the mayor's not here. The administration, you have anything else to say?
I've said more than I usually say tonight, but I do appreciate the dialogue.
Right.
This is a tough issue. And, you know, hearing people needs to happen too, and at the same time, I have to commend my staff for the job they've done. They've made more progress in the last 2 years than they did in 17. And I know this is difficult for our residents. I know this is expensive too. No one wants to get, you know, $12,000, you could take a 2-week vacation in someplace very tropical. So we're going to continue to work our way through it and get these questions answered. And if there's a way we can make this easier, we're certainly open to it.
Okay. Madam Attorney, you have anything?
I have nothing further to add.
Okay, Clerk, Madam Clerk?
Yes, we're 23 days away from the election. Mostly every Southfield resident household should have gotten my election newsletter by now, which is serving as an informational piece for the upcoming election. Right now, we are about 25% higher than we were 4 years ago for absentee ballots. So anyone that can vote absentee, I would encourage you to do that. My office is open daily from 8 to 5 for absentee voting. As stated before, it's looking like we will have a record turnout in the state of Michigan, probably 4.5 million people voting. So the polls will be congested. So if you can vote absentee, I would strongly encourage that. Thank you.
Treasurer is not here. The planner, assessor, engineer is gone. On the 23rd, we have a scheduled meeting on the 23rd of October from 5 to 7. That will be our emergency preparedness training. And I will go through the clerk to make sure we get the notice out.
Tonight.
Tonight was a pre-run, right? Yeah. I will be working with the clerk and also the police department to make sure we get the announcement out.
I'm with you.
Other than that, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.